Hi, I'm Charles Both, and I'm a professor. I've been a knitter and crocheter for about 47 years, and I've designed and tech edited for publications like Vogue Knitting, Interweave Crochet, Annie's publications like Crochet World and Crochet Exclamation Mark. I'm here to share my knowledge and skills and experience with you because I really want to see you become good crocheters and knitters. Welcome to Swatch On, Swatch Off. Today we're going to learn how to make this square, which is actually corner to corner Tunisian crochet lace. And this crochet lace is actually quite nice because it's not mirror image reversible, but both sides look really good. So it's ideal for blankets or scarves or things that you'll see both sides. All right. In this video, I'm going to kind of cover the basic stitches that you'll need to know to do this particular pattern. If you want to do, if you haven't ever done crochet before, I suggest that you go back and look at some other videos that you can find on YouTube for Tunisian simple stitch, Tunisian knit stitch, and what the return pass is about, just so that you have a better idea. I will be making this video for beginners, so those of you who want to skip on ahead to the actual pattern, just look in the description below the video and you'll find the time codes for the different parts of the video, so you can jump ahead rather easily. So we're going to cover the basic stitches, then we're going to work on how to increase from the one corner out that way, and then we'll work also on the decrease. Now there's a few, obviously there's some rows that just repeat over and over and over again as you go out, and some rows that repeat over and over again as you decrease. But the starting point and the turning direction points and the end kind of have special spots. So you'll also be able to see the time codes for those particular spots in the description below, so when you need to, you can find them easily. The rectangle version of this isn't ready yet, but just go to the description below and I'll give you a link to where the rectangle version will be readily available. All right, so let's get started. First, I wanted to show you just a couple comparisons of how this fabric looks crocheted up depending on the yarn that you use. So this is a double knitting weight yarn, and I used a size 4.5 Tunisian crochet hook on it. Double knitting weight usually is knit on size 4mm needles, speaking of knitting, that is. So when you look at the ball bands of your yarn, you're going to want to look at the knitting gauge, and you'll see that it's 4mm needles for double knitting weight. For a Tunisian crochet hook, you want to go up a 0.5 millimeter size or a full millimeter size to get a nice drape with the fabric. So this was 4.5, but probably would have been okay with 5 as well. Let me just show you another square I did earlier. This square was also double knitting weight, but I used a 5.5 hook, so you can see just how much lacier it is. So you can play around with hook size depending on the effect that you want to achieve. Okay, so the first step is to go through the basic stitches that you need for this particular pattern. They're not necessarily basic Tunisian stitches, but they're basic for this pattern. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to want to do is look for the typical vertical bars of the Tunisian simple stitch. You know how some people say that Tunisian always curls? Well, I just wanted to show off that it really isn't curling, and that's because of using a hook that is quite a bit bigger than the knitting needle's recommended size. And I also make sure that my vertical bars are quite lengthy, and that also helps avoid a lot of that curling. Anyway, that's another topic. So The first stitch that we're going to learn, that I'm going to show you, is the Tunisian purl stitch. For the Tunisian purl stitch, you're going to want to find those vertical bars because you are going to be inserting the hook from right to left below those vertical bars. If you're a left-hand knitter, it'll be from left to right, but basically it's the same thing. Okay, so for a Tunisian purl stitch, you need the yarn in front of the needle. It looks like I'm going to do a yarn over, but I'm not. I'm just resting the yarn in front of the needle, and I'm going to use my index finger to kind of hold that out of the way. Then I'm going to go under the vertical bar from right to left. Then for the purl stitch, I'm going to bring that yarn back down in front of that vertical bar, and that's going to create this horizontal strand across, which creates the purl bump in knitting, which is why we call it the Tunisian purl stitch. Okay, then I'm going to use the chin of my hook, and basically the yarn is going to be under the hook, and I'm going to pull it under that vertical bar. Now at the same time I'm doing that, it's hard to show here, I'm going to be rotating my hook out of the way. So I'm just going to try that again because that wasn't very graceful. Okay, yarn in front, hook underneath from right to left, bring the yarn in front, then I'm going to take that yarn, and as I pull through, I don't know if you can see, my fingers here are rotating the hook. If I move things, no, my hook is too long for you to see the tail end rotating there. But you can see that I'm rotating the hook kind of away from me, and then the full 360 degrees, and I bring the chin of the hook back in front. So let's try that again. Yarn in front, hold it, insert the hook, let the yarn drop down, hook under, yarn under hook, pull through and rotate away, and then finish the rotation towards me. You can see there are 3 purl stitches. Okay, I'm just going to finish off with Tunisian simple crochet and Tunisian knit stitch in the end. And a regular going from this direction and loading the loops onto the hook is called the front pass, and now I'm going to do the back pass. The standard back pass is to chain 1, then to take yarn and go through 2, take yarn, go through 2, and go through 2, and go through 2, right to the end. Okay, we won't be using the standard return pass for this lace, Tunisian lace stitch, but it'll be pretty similar in some cases, so I just wanted to review that. Okay, so the next stitch that you need to know is the Tunisian knit stitch that is extended. So it's called the extended Tunisian knit stitch. All right, so to do this, my hook is going to go through the fabric, not just under the vertical bar. So the Tunisian simple stitch is under that vertical bar. I'm going to go under that vertical bar and tilt to the back so that the hook comes out the back. It's basically going in between the back vertical bar, the one that's hidden at the back of the fabric. I don't know if you can see that. I'm tugging at it with my needle. It's going between that one and the front vertical bar and goes to the back of the fabric. So let me just lift it up again. All right, so I'm going to go in between the back vertical bar and the front vertical bar, and the hook's coming out to the back, yarn over and pull up a loop. And to extend it, I'm going to chain 1 before I keep going. So that's the extended Tunisian knit stitch. Again, I'm going to go through the fabric, yarn up, and chain 1, and there's my extended Tunisian crochet hook, Tunisian crochet stitch. So I'm just going to do that all the way across, just so that I can get to the other side and then do a return pass. So don't mind me for going so fast. I just want to bring us to the place where we can learn the cluster that we're going to be using. Okay, so this is a Tunisian double crochet cluster, and there's 2 Tunisian double crochets that are joined together to make the cluster. So here I'm going to just do a simple stitch first to kind of get us to the middle. All right, so I'm going to work the Tunisian double crochet cluster in this vertical bar, and only in the vertical bar. I'm not going to go right through to the back of the fabric. So to do that, yarn over, insert hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop. So now I have 2 strands, yarn over, pull through those 2. And that's a Tunisian double crochet, and I've done 1 of them. Yarn over, in the same vertical bar, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And now I have 2 Tunisian double crochets, and I'm going to close them off with a yarn over, pull through 2, and there's my cluster. So if I do a Tunisian purl stitch right after doing that cluster, you'll see how it pops out to the front of the fabric. So it creates a nice little, almost like a bobble effect there. Okay, let's do another cluster. Remember that lots of crochet patterns use the word cluster, and each cluster has a different definition. So you have to read crochet patterns in the notes to find out how to make each cluster. In this case, I'm showing you in this video, but it'll also be in the written pattern, which there'll be a link to it in the video description. So yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over, go through 2. That's my first double crochet. In the same spot, I'm going to go through, yarn over, pull up a loop, go through 2, and then seal the cluster off by yarn over and go through 2. And then I've reached the end, so I'm just going to do a Tunisian knit stitch and a standard return pass. Okay, so that's it. You need the Tunisian simple stitch, the Tunisian purl stitch, the Tunisian cluster that I defined and showed you how to do, and the extended Tunisian knit stitch. And that's all you're going to need to make the square. So I'm just going to change yarns and try something else here. Okay. Okay, a couple other little things that you might want to use to make things a little bit easier is a locking crochet stitch like this one, and that's probably the only tool that you need to know. Okay, before I start with a stitch, I want to show you some things that I learned as I was making this watch. So you see here, there's quite an ugly knot kind of sticking off the side here. And so I figured out a way to get rid of that knot, so I'll be showing you that. Also, if you look at the elasticity, this side has some elasticity, but this side has a lot more. This side is a little tight, and this side is very stretchy. So I figured out how to make all 4 sides evenly stretchy, and that's pretty important for a nice balanced blanket or project. As you can see here, it was really easy to put a simple single crochet edging all the way around because it was balanced, and there's the same amount of give on each of the 4 sides. All right. So the first thing is to get rid of that wonky knot at the beginning of the project. So you're going to make a slip knot. I'll start over again. You're going to make a slip knot, and you're not going to pull it tight. I use my middle finger and thumb on this hand to kind of hold it secure from coming apart, but there's no tightening it up. And then I'm going to chain 4. All right, so you can see there's my very loose slip knot. Don't want to lose that, don't want to tighten that up. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do here is work in the back bumps of the chain. As you probably know, the top of a the top of a chain looks like a braid. And the back of the chain looks like what I like to call crocodile scales. So there's some bumps there along the back of that chain. So we're going to work into those back bumps. Let me just get this positioned properly. All right, there we go. So we're going to insert the hook under the back bump and pull up a loop. Insert the hook under the back bump and pull up a loop. And in the fourth chain as well. So we started in the second chain and lifted a loop in the third and fourth. Okay, there's my loose slip knot. I'm still just going to leave that be for now. Okay, there's no chain one on this return pass. We're going to yarn over, pull through two, yarn over, pull through two, and yarn over, pull through two. And that's the foundation row, or the first row. Now that I've pulled all the way through, I can come back to my slip knot and I can pull the tail out once and pull the tail out again 2 times and then slightly give a little tug on that, and that has made everything quite neat and there's no wonky knot. Later on we'll just hide and weave in that tail and it'll be all invisible. Okay, so the next thing that I'd like to show you is the first row. And it's the only time that the row is worked like this because it's right in the corner. So I'm going to chain 1. In this vertical bar, I'm going to do a simple stitch. So insert and pull up a loop. In the next vertical bar, I'm going to work a cluster. Yarn over, insert from right to left under that vertical bar. Yarn over, pull up a loop for 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. My first double crochet is done. Yarn over, insert in the same spot. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. There's my second Tunisian double crochet done. Yarn over, pull through 2 to seal off that cluster, and the cluster is made. Next, here in little detail, you can see that I have basically on top of where the tail is coming out, there's 1 and 2 strands. They are vertical bars, but they've tightened up, which is what happens pretty consistently. And we're going to insert the hook under both of those. So I'm going to go under those 2 loops. And do a simple Tunisian stitch. So just lift up the loop. And then I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to go back into that same spot and do another Tunisian simple stitch. And now I have 5 loops on my hook. For all rows on the forward pass, you want to end up with an odd number of loops, and then you'll know that you're doing the right thing. Okay, so now we'll work the return pass. For this return pass, you're going to chain 2, and then you're going to do this little trick. You're going to hang this locking stitch marker right on the yarn. Just going to dangle there, go for a zip line ride down to the hook. Okay, so after you've chained 2 and put the locking marker on, you're going to yarn over and pull through 2. Next, you're going to chain 1. Then yarn over and pull through 2. Next, chain 1. And now you've come to this big gap at the end of the return pass where you have 2 strands. You've just chained 1. You're going to yarn over and you're pulling through all 3. So that creates two big eyelets, and that's what you want. Those eventually get filled up with cluster stitches. Okay, so that was the second row. Now we're going to do row 3, and row 3 is the row that we repeat over and over and over again as long as we are increasing the square. All right, so row 3 starts like this. Chain 2, do a simple stitch in the back bump of the second chain. So I'm going to look for that and lift up a loop. Now I have two long strands which are kind of on an angle, but they're leaning over because it is corner to corner. So under these two diagonal strands, you're going to do the second one, and you're going to do a cluster there. So yarn over, go under that second diagonal bar, yarn up, yarn through 2, yarn over, same vertical bar, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn through 2, and close off the cluster with yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so now you can see the cluster, and on either side of the cluster is, this is from the first row, or the second row I mean, those are those eyelets. So in this vertical bar that's in between the eyelets, you're going to work a Tunisian purl stitch. Yarn in front of hook, insert from right to left, let the yarn drop down, yarn under, and scoop the yarn out. And there's the Tunisian purl. As you can see, the Tunisian purl has closed up the gap. So now we need to skip this gap, skip that gap, and work a cluster into this vertical bar. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and go through 2. Insert, yarn over, insert hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. That's 2 double crochets, yarn over, cluster sealed off. Okay, now we've reached the end where that stitch marker is waiting for you. All right, so that stitch marker shows you that it was in this back strand here. It shows you the back strand where the hook is going to go, so you're going to go through the front strand and the back strand. And then you're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. That's a Tunisian knit stitch. We're going to chain 1 to extend it. Then you're going to go back into the same spot and do a Tunisian simple stitch. So you're just going to pull up a loop, and you want to extend it quite a bit because you want this edge to not get too tight. That's part of the elasticity. All right, so now I'd like to show you the return pass. This is the same return pass for every row 3, and you're going to repeat row 3 over and over again. So you're going to chain 2. You're going to give that stitch marker a zip line ride. And then you're going to yarn over, go through 2, chain 1, yarn over, go through 2, chain 1, yarn over, go through 2, chain 1, all the way across. Till the end, after you've done a chain 1 and you have a gap and 2 stitches, then you're going to yarn over and go through 3. And then now you can see that there's 2 clusters separated with eyelets in between them. Let's repeat that row one more time, and then we'll work on the decreases. Chain 2, simple crochet in the back bump of the second chain, right there. In the second diagonal line, we're going to do a cluster. You shouldn't call it a diagonal line, it's a diagonal strand, but whatever, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so there's 2 parts of the cluster, yarn over and pull through 2 to seal that off. Here's 2 gaps. I'm going to then do a Tunisian purl in that stitch. Yarn in front of hook, insert there, drop the yarn in front, scoop, twist, and pull back. Remember that you're rotating the hook as you go, and then you can finish 360 all the way back towards you. Okay, this is a Tunisian purl from the previous row, so we're going to just go in the front bar of it, right there, and work another cluster. So we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop and go through 2, yarn over, pull up a loop, go through 2, and seal. Next is a Tunisian purl, yarn in front of hook, from right to left, drop the yarn in front, hook rotate out, cluster in this last vertical bar before the last gap, and close the cluster off. Okay, then find that last chain, insert hook under both strands. It always needs to be both strands so that you have a nice neat finish. Then we're going to do an extended stitch by chaining 1. Go right back into the same spot and do a simple stitch and stretch it quite open. Okay, so we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 stitches, odd number, right. Okay, so the standard return pass for this pattern, remember that was a chain 2, zip line, then yarn over, chain, pull through 2, chain 1, pull through 2, chain 1, pull through 2, chain 1, all the way to the end, except when we did through the 3. Now that we're going to turn from increasing to decreasing, we have to do something a little bit different. Okay, so we're going to yarn over, and we're going to pull through 3 stitches. And then we're going to chain 1 and pull through 2, chain 1, pull through 2, chain 1, pull through 2, and this creates those spaces in between clusters and purl stitches. Okay, at the end, again, normally we would have chained 1 and pulled through 3, but I'm going to back myself up. No chain 1. Okay, so when you get to the spot where you've just pulled through the cluster and you have this gap, on the last return pass before decreasing, you're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. And now you can see that we have started changing the direction of the square, and we're going to start decreasing. All right, now one thing I did want to show you before continuing with the decrease is in this stitch here, you can see that the lace work isn't very open compared to this. There's 2 things. Of course, I used the bigger hook on this one, so that caused the lace to open up. But another thing that I did here is I created what are called anchor clusters. And what it does is it means that these little holes don't open up quite as wide. So if you don't want little fingers to go through, you might want to try anchored stitches. Oh, anchored cluster stitches. All right. So I'm going to show you how to do an anchored cluster as we work across this row. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to skip the first cluster, go to this Tunisian purl stitch and work an anchored cluster. So the anchored cluster starts exactly the same. Yarn over, right to left under that vertical bar, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Here's the difference. I'm going to yarn over, insert under the same vertical bar, but now I'm going to look at that chain that's tucked behind, and I'm going to go under the back strand of that one chain. So I have the yarn over, I've inserted under the vertical bar. I'm going also in that chain, I'm going to yarn over and pull through both, finish the double crochet, yarn over, pull through 2. So those are my 2 double crochets. Now I'm going to yarn over and pull through the cluster. Okay, next is time for a purl stitch. Yarn in front, right to left, yarn down in front, scoop under, rotate the hook, and it's done. Here's another anchored double crochet cluster, and specifically a Tunisian double crochet cluster. So yarn over, insert right to left, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 strands. Ready to anchor it, yarn over, go through the same strand, also through the back loop of the one chain, yarn over and go through both of those. And now I'm going to do my second double crochet, yarn over and seal off the cluster. Okay, here I am. I've arrived at the end. I don't know if you can see them clearly, but there are 2 strands kind of sitting on top of the fabric. I don't know if you can see them better at this angle. There's 2 sitting at this, right at the end. So those are kind of like the 2 vertical bars at the end, and you're going to go under both of them and Tunisian simple stitch, which just means to pull up the strand. Okay, and now you can see that we're back down to 5, another odd number. Okay, so to return, I'm going to yarn over, go through 2, yarn over, go through 2 without chaining. Then chain 1. Okay, and now I'm at the end here where I shouldn't have chained 1. So it's yarn over and go through all 3. Okay, so that leaves 1 more row to do right at the corner. So I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to find the last 2 eyelets with the last vertical bar there, and I'm going to work an anchored cluster in that one. So you insert, yarn over, pull through, 2. Yarn over, insert, go in the back strand of the chain behind it, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and there I finished that cluster. Then I'm going to go under these 2 vertical bars and simple stitch between them all. Now I have 3 strands left. It's just going to be yarn over, pull through all 3, and chain 1 to fasten off. So you can see here, I only did a couple increase rows and then started decreasing right away. But you can see that this has the same amount of give as this, and as this, and as this. So that is how to make the corner to corner Tunisian lace. So just to wrap things up, I'd like to invite you to make something out of this stitch pattern. If you're really adventurous, it could be a blanket, or you could do a whole bunch of squares and then sew them together. In the written instructions, you'll find the instructions on how to do this very straightforward row of single crochet stitches. And anyway, I'd like you to share your progress somewhere on social media. So you can join my Facebook group that I host with my friend Rebecca. It's called Lifelong Crocheters, and you can join us there, or on Instagram. Feel free to post, and you can use the hashtag swatch on, swatch off, or you can tag me, Mr. Voth, and but all the links will be down below, because I'd like to see what you try to do, what works out for you. One other point I kind of forgot. If you're going to do a blanket, a hook this size is not going to be long enough to get like even 48 inches or 56 inches worth of stitches across here. So you're going to want to get interchangeable Tunisian crochet hook, which has a shorter tip and then a cable, and at the end of the cable there's a little stopper which keeps the loops from coming off. Yeah, definitely you'll need something like that to do a blanket. But making smaller squares is a good place to start. You can try out different yarns, different hook sizes, and see which one you end up being happy with. Thanks for joining me on Swatch On, Swatch Off. Come back for new stitch patterns and new ideas for your crochet inventory. Thanks. Bye-bye.